Hafade, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Candidates right here at the Leo Palace Resort in Menangan Hills. I'm your host for this episode, Janela Carrera, and joining me today is senatorial candidate, Republican senatorial candidate, Eric Palacios, who's also the former EPA administrator. So sit back, relax. We'll be right back after this. Hafade, and welcome back to Coffee with the Candidates. I'm your host, Janela Carrera. We are right here at the Leo Palace Resort. And joining me for this episode is Eric Palacios, who's a senatorial candidate on the GOP ticket. He's also the former EPA administrator. So we'll get right to it. We're going to start with asking you, why are you running for the obvious question? Why are you running for office?
Okay. If I may, before I answer that, I would like to thank everyone who voted for me in the primary election to get me to sit here today to be able to speak about why I'd like to continue on this journey that I'm on. So that being said, thank you, Guam, for your vote of confidence. Now, having worked at Guam EPA the better part of the last 5 years, I grew to love the job of protecting our environment. It opened up a whole new world to me, so much so that it made me realize that I really want to do more in the realm of public service. I've got ideas that I think might help other agencies within the government, but of course, being at Guam EPA, I've got to stay in my lane. And so I decided that I wanted to hopefully get into a position where I could help develop and drive policy that will result in efficiency and better service for our island.
So not necessarily just environmental, stuff that you would want to work on. You'd want to work on a realm of different things.
The environment will be my main focus. But with that, of course, building our economy and building a sustainable and responsible economy because of where we live. We're so remote. We're way out here. So what I like to tell people is economic development that's environmentally respectful, and really it comes down to not at all costs. And I think that having worked at Guam EPA, we were able to straddle that very fine line of economic prosperity and environmental protection.
Okay. All right. So one of our first questions, this is a topic that has been controversial the last couple of years here in Guam, is the senatorial pay raises. What is your position on the pay raises that the senators received a couple of years ago?
Just cutting to the chase, I would support any repeal of senatorial pay raises. And for me, the reason is simple, and maybe I'm a little naive, but putting all of that aside, I don't think that senators, and God willing, I become a senator, I don't think I should get paid $85,000 or $80,000, whatever it is, to do a lot of the things that maybe some senators feel they should be compensated for. I shouldn't be compensated for going to ribbon cutting, to going to rosaries. If I can't even use campaign contributions to make medical donations or funeral-related expenses, that tells me right off the bat that it is not an official function. And so where I think money might be better spent if we want to start looking at increasing senatorial office budgets is in the staff that do the hard work, the researchers, the bill writers. That I would support, to an extent. But as far as senatorial pay raises, I don't think, when you think about it, their three main functions are passing a balanced budget, confirming the governor's appointees, and enacting laws. That doesn't take 80 hours, for 26 weeks.
Right.
And so I don't think they should be paid at that level.
Okay. And so if you are elected and if the people had a chance, or there was talk about possibly repealing the law that gave the raises to the senators, is that something you would support?
I would absolutely support it.
Okay. Now moving on to another topic that's just been recently discussed, with the deportation issue. The governor had commuted a number of sentences for some criminals and sent them back to their home countries. What is your stand on that policy that he's enacted?
I respect the governor for making such a tough decision, and for making now 5 tough decisions, and for really bringing to the forefront the lack of our federal government's willpower to do, its job and live up to its responsibilities of treaties that it has entered into with other sovereign nations. And so, I don't think that at this point in time the debate should be whether or not what he's doing is the right or wrong thing. I think what we should be focusing on is maybe supporting him, creating this louder voice to get the federal government to finally live up to its responsibilities.
Okay. So basically, it's kind of like, okay, well, we're deporting these these so-called criminals, but it's not necessarily an act of providing a statement to the general public, but more so to kind of get the attention of the federal government.
Right.
Okay. Do you agree with the Attorney General's office, when they say that the governor doesn't really have the power to do these deportations because of the federal government's involvement?
Right. I mean, I'll defer to an extent to her legal expertise. I certainly am not nearly at the level that she is as far as the law is concerned, right? Or understanding of the law. But again, for me, as a citizen of Guam, it comes back to we need to start holding the federal government accountable and holding their feet to the fire for things that it imposes upon us to enforce and carry out, and then only to our detriment financially, resource-wise. That's where I think we should really start looking at.
Do you think that these criminals should finish their sentences? I know there were some of them who had maybe just a couple years left, or even just a few months left, and so really there wasn't much of a commuting there.
Right.
But do you think that they should finish it and then have them deported?
I think it comes down to a case-to-case basis, and I say that because
Hafide, and welcome back to Coffee with the Candidates right here at the Leo Palace Resort. I'm your host, Janela Carrera, and joining me for this part of our episode is Benito Servino, who's running on the GOP ticket for senator. And he's also the director of Department of
Integrated Services
for individuals with disabilities. It's such a long...
DISIT for short.
DISIT for short. There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On our show. I'm going to start off with the obvious question. Why are you running for office? And this is your first time, as I understand it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm running because I want to be the voice of the most vulnerable. You know, the early childhood group, youth and adults with disabilities, and the veterans, and the manamko. I want to advocate for them. I want to be their voice in the legislature. And with my years of experience in the federal government, the state of California, and now GovGuam, you add up all those years of public service, I think I'd be a great asset in the legislature.
Now, I know you were drafted, right?
Yes, I was one of those that were drafted.
Okay, so you didn't initially think about, this wasn't like something that you had thought about, or is it something that you've been
Actually,
thinking about?
I did think about it. I was hoping to run in the gubernatorial
2018.
Time period. But, the call came in, and a lot of people have been asking for me to run. So, like a good citizen, public servant, I said, yes, I'm going to step up to the plate and take on that challenge. I really wish I had more time to plan my campaign and build some resources, but you just move forward and continue on with what you can.
Well, good luck with your campaign.
Thank you.
I'm going to start off with one of the first questions is on the pay raises, the senatorial pay raises. That's been a controversial topic with the legislature as well as the governor's office. What is your position on that issue?
The pay raise is something that I'm not really too concerned about with. I mean, I took about a $25,000 cut in salary just to come to Guam. So salary's not an issue for me. I've got a pension coming in. I support the repeal of the pay raise. I think it's about giving back to the community. I think that's the important thing we need to stay focused on. I don't plan on becoming a lifetime career politician. I just want to go in, get some good legislation passed, start mentoring some of the youth so they can take on that leadership role. Then we can also get retired, fully retired.
Right. Well, do you think that the people of Guam should have the right to be able to repeal these raises that the senators got?
Of course. I mean, that's why we're here, right? We're here for the people. They elected us. They have every right to put that in the ballot if they feel that that's something that's really critical and important to them. Of course.
Okay. The next topic that I want to touch on is deportation. And as you know, it's been a pretty controversial one in the last few weeks with the commutations that the governor has done on some criminals and then sending them back to their home countries. Do you support the governor's policy on this?
I sure do. I really think that, if you've committed a crime, you really need to be held accountable for those crimes. I think the FSM government really needs to step up to the plate also and address this issue. As we look at DOC and the number of inmates that are there, we can't continue to afford to house these inmates. We need to go out and rehabilitate them and get them out in the community so they can be able to be contributing members of our society. But again, if anybody has committed a crime, they've got to pay their dues to society.
Well, some of these, actually most of these cases, all of them, have a sort of kind of I'm going to do something for you if you do something for us, where he commutes the sentences in exchange for the promise to never come back to Guam. Do you think that they should finish out their sentences first, or do you agree with the idea of commuting the sentence?
We need to look at creative approaches and come up with ways to make it a win-win for everybody. If it'll mean having them do community services, if it has a benefit to our community, why not? We need to explore these opportunities and maximize, again, the time that we have with these individuals and to assist them, to help make them realize that they need to give back to the community for the crimes that were committed.
Okay. The next topic I want to discuss is the minimum wage. I know that Vice Speaker Cruz has kind of led, this topic and trying to increase it, and he has. But would you support another increase in the minimum wage?
You know, we need to really study the economic impact that it will make in our community. Mm-hmm. I know for the small business owner, it'll be a very adverse impact on them. They can't afford to pay these salaries, you know, and survive. And a lot of them will end up closing shop. Mm-hmm. So we need to be sensitive to that. You know, and we need to try to adhere to the federal guidelines of the minimum wage. Just be consistent with that, mm-hmm. and not go beyond that, and just make it realistic and affordable for everybody, mm-hmm. both the large business owner and the small business owner.
What about for the employees who would be, you know, the beneficiaries of this?
Absolutely, and you know, I can understand where they're coming from too. I mean, the high cost of living right now, mm-hmm. It's very difficult to survive in our community. I've heard of people having 2 jobs just to make ends meet. But we really need to weigh out all factors and try to do some studies on the impact of it, what would happen if we do increase it. We need to increase it gradually. We can't increase it a significant amount that really burden the economy.
Okay, and then kind of a somewhat related topic is homelessness. You know, there are a number of homeless people here in Guam, and I know the numbers have kind of decreased, excuse me, just a little bit, but that doesn't excuse the fact that there is a homeless population here. If elected senator, what would you do to try to decrease that number or even eliminate it altogether?
You know, a lot of it has to do with providing the natural supports that are needed. For a lot of the homeless population, they need to be, again, gainfully employed so they can help sustain themselves. They need to look at all the supports in the community as far as counseling, mental health counseling, looking at, again, all the issues and challenges they face in our community. And, you know, I'm part of the Guam Homeless Coalition.
Oh, okay.
We've tried to find ways to help these individuals, even looking at providing funding for, again, the cost of court clearances, police clearances. These individuals can't afford it.
Right. These hurdles that get in the way of
challenges
employment.
Get in the way of them succeeding. Mm-hmm. And, you know, trying to work with the system, looking at the court system, looking at the police department, and setting up some kind of waiver for people who are homeless so they can be able to go and, again, get those clearances that they need to get a job. Because those are barriers that they all face.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're the director for DISID,
That's
and
correct.
so I know you work with a lot of individuals with disabilities. So with the next topic, I'm guessing you'll have some knowledge on is health. Mm-hmm. Now I know that you know, the Guam Memorial Hospital is constantly in debt, and there was a bond that was floated recently to try and eliminate that. But what would your position be on trying to ensure or ensuring that that doesn't happen again, where they're in so much debt that they're on the brink of, you know, basically falling apart?
Again, you know, there is existing legislation that states that we cannot turn anybody away, right, from the hospital. You know, they don't have the capacity to pay. We really need to look at ways to address some of those costs. You know, I know the FSM population that are here, a lot of them can't afford health care. I think the FSM population, their government needs to step up to the plate too and help support that. The federal government needs to come in and provide the supports to offset those costs, because we can't continue to work this way. We need to do a better job at, again, going out and, again, collecting the revenues that are needed. You know, for those that can afford it, they have insurance.
Right.
We need to do a better job at collecting those revenues and looking at creative ways to build our capacity. You know, this, again, with the H-2 visa issue, and looking at the capacity of the hospital to provide the needed technical staff, the nurses and technicians. Those are barriers for us. We need to build our capacity and address that, and find ways to overcome some of those challenges so we can build our revenue. And our economy, you know, we need to start building our industry here in Guam. So again, a lot of people can afford the high cost of insurance coverage.
Insurance, healthcare.
Healthcare, that's right.
All right. Well, those are all the questions that I have for now.
Sure.
But thank you so much for joining us in this episode, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for having me.
For your campaign. First time running, so I'm
First
sure it's
time.
very
Thank you.
exciting. But thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to thank my supporters out there for voting for me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that was Benito Servino, the current director of DISIT and the Republican candidate for senator. I'm your host, Janela Carrera, right here at Leo Palace for Coffee with the Candidates. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good day.